back to season 2 of Food for Therapy. I'm your host, Marie-Therese Bolden. Welcome to my show, the show that combines my training and specialties of psychotherapy and counselling and writing with my love and my passion of food and hosting and culture. And I have a really special guest on this in my home today and at my table, and it's Belinda Mackie, psychoanalyst, Dr. Belinda Mackie. I've got here that you are a member of the Australian Centre for Psychoanalysis. You got your PhD from Monash University on the influence of psychoanalysis in the treatment of patients in psychiatric institutions. You have over 30 years of working in the mental health service, both in public and private. That's amazing. And you're currently working in private practice and consult with the rehab faculty of Arrow Health, which is for addictions. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Beautiful. Yep. Welcome to my home. Welcome to my table. We've got a really juicy topic, and the topic is boundaries. And Dr. Mackie has just finished a book, or books. Where's the book's on the book depository?
I think it's all over the place, but it's been published in Canberra.
Okay, and so we'll let you know exactly where you can get Dr. Mackie's book from later on in the show. But the topic is, yes, and I have my beautiful copy as well. The topic is boundaries, and yes, you do have a sense of humour. And the food for today is a lamb backstrap. As you know, I like my food to be really quick, really nutritious, and really colourful, because that's how we know we get the nutrients from it. I've got Middle Eastern spices on there. I've got beautiful greens with some sesame seeds, and I've got a blue cheese, because blue cheese is my weakness, blue cheese and mesclun salad with balsamic vinegar. All the recipes you'll get on our social media. So let's get into it, Dr. Mackie. I'd like to ask you, or Belinda, I'd like to ask you about, let's talk about what was the impetus for you to write the book?
So I've been storing up over a 30-year period the idea for the book, and I'd even had the title for it, saying to people, one day I'm going to write a book that'll be perfect for this situation called The Good No. Mm-hmm. And the situation came that I was working in a drug and alcohol rehab. At the same time, my brother died. He had a chronic history of heroin addiction. Mm-hmm. So it kind of made it like as a tribute to him, but also I was working in drugs and alcohol, and there's a chapter in the book on addictions. Mm-hmm. So it came together in that way, and it just wrote itself.
It was organic, yeah.
It was organic. It wrote itself, really. But I mean, you have the idea sometime, and then there's just certain things that push you into actually bringing it to fruition, really.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So why are boundaries so important? Tell me about, and you and I have discussed this. Belinda was also my supervisor when I did my clinical hours, but we've discussed the concept of boundaries or lack thereof, and why it causes problems for people. Tell me about that. Share with me your thoughts on it.
I think for us human beings, there is always a question about myself and the other human being, whoever they are. Family, friends, people you don't know, institutions, there's an other out there. And we have to negotiate throughout our lives relationships, or lack thereof, with the other. But the other is a tricky, random other, and we have to work out how close or far we want people, how intrusions into our boundaries, we need to recognize it in ourselves enough to be able to say no to the other's intrusions on us. We need to have a limit so that we know where we begin and they begin and end, where we begin and end and they begin and end. Mm-hmm. What else?
So what happens? You would see this often, I would imagine, in your consulting and treating in addiction, that addicts don't have a lot of boundaries. And what happens in that context? Give me an example of what would happen to someone who is addicted, and is it that they don't have boundaries first?
It's like chicken and the egg.
Yes.
Yeah, it's yes. Well, this is something that we've been studying all the way along,
right?
To do that. But look, after thinking about this, I just think that a substance, whatever that substance is, it can be internet addiction, it can be gambling, it can be porn. Just happen to deal with chemicals, toxins, drugs and alcohol. I think it has to do with something to do with boundaries and other symptoms, let's say, around that lead to people picking up something like that and then relying on the addiction, the choice of addiction, as a way of living or a way of getting enjoyment or a way of feeling protected or safe or whatever.
Right.
And then it becomes far more and more habitual. The longer you hold on to it, the safer you are with it, the longer it repeats itself. And then your let's say your boundaries become weaker and you lack self-discipline around that. I think when you have boundaries in place, you have the boundaries in place because you have self-discipline around maintaining them, and you have self-respect,
right,
and confidence.
That's the key. That's a big
the
one.
Circle.
Yeah,
yes,
that's a big
so.
one. Whenever I talk about boundaries, people ask me, so how did you come to have such strong boundaries? And I say, well, I learned that. I learned that in the process of, maybe not having as many. Exactly. I mean, in my early 20s, and when I was, I was a people pleaser, and so for me it was more about recognizing the importance of having them, one, to keep me safe,
yes,
to keep me healthy, but also the importance of recognizing that it's important to say no, because saying no means that you value yourself. It means that you have self-respect, being able to say no. But why is it so hard for so many people, Belinda?
No, because I think you've got to be able to say no in order to be able to say yes, because you've got to know what you're going to be saying yes to. So as is in the book, it's like, and just this week alone, I've come across an extraordinary amount of people women, it's mainly women, you see, that's why I said, for men, it's a little bit different, I think, how it's manifest. And I'm generalizing when I say men and women as well. To not say no, somebody was telling me this is what she said. She said, I was born into a world where my mother wouldn't let me say no.
Right.
And then I married a man who wouldn't let me say no. And then she said, I got the message, I can't say no.
Right.
So she then didn't with her children. So she was the one who was nice, gave way, pleasant, polite to all.
Constantly, yeah. How exhausting.
And the other side of it was what was happening along with that was self-doubt, feeling as though she wasn't worth much.
Oh, she'd be used and depleted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And she felt that her only role in life was to say yes to everybody, and not at all. So this week, hot off the press, she said it for the first time.
Oh, wow.
About around being abandoned by the family at a particular time of year, a special time of year that you usually have family around. And so she was able to stand up and confront it very painfully. It was a painful experience to be able to say no to somebody you love in a good way, without being rude, but to hold your ground. And for the other one to be upset too, but you still hold it. And then there's repercussions afterwards, like, have I done the wrong thing? I should have really said yes, I shouldn't have said. And then to stay with it and then feel the relief and then confidence.
Yeah. It takes time,
that comes
though.
from it.
I remember when I was in that process, and I don't know if there was a defining moment where I recognized that I had, that I was a people pleaser, but there was definitely a defining moment that I was going to learn how to say no, and learn how to say no without saying the word no.
Yeah.
Because that's an art.
Absolutely. It doesn't have to be the word no.
Yes. And I found that for me, what worked well was to focus on what I was happy to do. So I'm happy to do this.
Yes.
I'm happy to do that, instead of saying I don't want to do that. But why do you think it is so difficult for women to say no? Why do you think that is?
We're born into it.
So patriarchy.
I think so. And also women, terrible, mothers conspire to produce daughters that appeal to their fathers. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And to a society. Boys don't cry.
Or to other men.
And to other men, yes.
In doing so, yeah.
And it's a society that mother has kind of been, submitted herself to, and then she wants her daughter to do the same, because it always was like that. You just repeat the same thing. And you'll hear from the grandma, let's say, as well, Now, nice girls smile and don't talk.
Yes, yes.
And,
yes.
you know, if be a nice girl and just give them the toy.
Right.
Don't complain.
Yeah.
And then through school, through adolescence in particular, don't be such a naughty girl. Naughty girls go to reform school.
It's drizzled out throughout our life from
Yes.
our primary caregivers to social norms. Although social norms are changing.
Yes, they are.
But I wrote an article recently, and I did send it to you, and I've sent it to my editor, and he threw it back basically at me and said, and I was glad that he did this. And in it, I actually wrote, and it was kind of an epiphany for me. My mother was somewhere between being the feminine mystique. Did you ever read that article, The Feminine Mystique?
Yes, I did.
And feminism.
Yes.
And the conflict that creates for a woman.
Absolutely.
Like, what is it? You want me to be really educated, or you want me to be subservient and provide? And it's not that she directly told me that. She did directly tell me that I should be educated and not rely on a man. But it's the behaviour that she exhibited. It's the tacit communication.
Absolutely.
You know?
That daughters read. You read that more than you read the overt speaking.
Absolutely.
And there's stereotypes that become familiar. And the other thing is it's a journey on becoming you, becoming a whole human, in this case, woman, that you can actually learn what your boundaries are and what you want in life, what you don't want, and confidence. And if you don't have that confidence, you don't feel that you've got any backup to be able to say no, or to even feel that you have boundaries. A lot of people feel that they are here for the other to make use of them. You see? And that's really, really, and mothers feel that way a lot. They talk about that.
Yeah, definitely. I can definitely relate to that.
So how, and my take on it as well is that this often leads to overkill, like a really angry no. No, get away from me, leave me alone, all that kind of stuff.
Well, it would end up compounding.
Exactly.
Yeah, because if you don't address something in the moment,
Yeah.
and you start, stuff it down and act like it doesn't affect you, it then compounds and compounds and compounds.
It's like a
It
big
becomes
bowling
monster.
ball.
Yeah,
and it bangs into things.
This is why you see women after years of being in relationships losing it, or they've been in an abusive relationship and one night she decides she's going to, leave or hurt him or hurt herself, because women are constantly given the message that they should be people pleasers. Yes.
It's a stereotype.
Yes. Yeah.
And there are so many stereotypes around this. And how do you debunk it when there is a force out there, and an aging force? Because frequently, if you get, like we were mentioning before about Taylor Swift, if you get these young women who have got these positive messages out there that are being spread over, 96,000 predominantly females, 3 nights in a row in Melbourne. That's fabulous. And they're absorbing some of these messages, that are coming at them.
Right.
It's a catalyst for some shift and change, so long as it's permitted as we go forward. And unfortunately, the aging generation, they're dying off.
Right.
And they'll hopefully some of those stereotypes will die there as well.
Yeah. I mean, Taylor Swift is a great example because, I was so absorbed in doing all my other stuff, and every time Taylor Swift's name came up, I was like, what is it? I want to understand this.
Yes.
And I saw an interview with her recently, and as I mentioned to you, and she was so poised and so assertive in talking about how she was in a relationship that was dysfunctional, and she was gaslit made to feel like she was the one. There was something wrong with her for speaking up. There was something wrong with her for highlighting that something wasn't working, or that it was affecting her, or that he was hurting her emotionally or psychologically, or whatever the scenario was. And I thought, kudos to you. What a beautiful young woman who has the ability to be so, clear in what she's saying. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And she does.
And I love that. I think that's really powerful. That's what young women need.
Completely.
Because
I've got a 9-year-old niece who was there screaming at the concert all the words that she was singing along with. But she's growing up in that
Mm.
with those ideas because she is a fan.
Which is wonderful.
It is.
Mm.
It is. You know.
It's wonderful. It's wonderful that you can see the social norms are changing. You can see the fabric of society is changing. But I always say that when change occurs, there's this resistance. You always get this resistance from the other side.
Backlash.
Always, right? And so the resistance seems even stronger because women are, women are asserting themselves. Women are saying, we're speaking up. We're not going to be assaulted. We're not going to be, mistreated. We're not going to be, castigated for being women. We're not going to be, treated as anything other than equals.
Hence the backlash she received from Donald Trump.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Yeah.
I don't listen to anything Donald Trump says anymore.
No. She said something about it. She said something about it. But she's,
What was it that he said?
I didn't go right in it. I read the first paragraph and thought, here he goes again, putting his foot in mouth disease. But he included her in really derogatory, like, don't listen to that silly bimbo or something like this.
Oh dear.
And because she was really on the side of the Democrats.
Right.
About policy and about ethics and things like this, how you should treat people. That was what she was talking about. And so there's this guy who's very, very, very powerful who comes down for no particular reason except just wanting to silence her. It's a perfect prototype for what's happened with women.
Oh, absolutely. This morning I was listening to the news and the Commissioner of the Police in Queensland, who is a woman, is stepping down. And somebody obviously in the police force came forward, and a man, and good on him, kudos to him for doing it, saying that there's a real problem in the police force with men taking umbrage with the fact that a woman is in power and you're accountable to a woman. And she's doing a great job, and she has done a great job for 5 years, but they really don't want to be accountable to a woman, and that is a problem.
Try the military.
It's just
same thing.
But this is why change needs to happen, and it is happening. But we're digressing. But I want to get back to the good note, because there was one, it's really funny, and you've definitely got a great sense of humour, and I found it really light reading, which is great.
Oh, Therese, that's so weird you saying that, because somebody said to me through the week, it was excruciating for me, and I couldn't go past chapter 5. I'll go back to it, but I found it painful. So it's so interesting.
No, it was like, but let's put it in context.
It was meant to be like.
Yeah, let's put it in context. I think I've had many, many challenges in my life. So when I read that seems to be really light for me.
It resonates.
It resonates with me. And what I loved, and I've marked some chapters here as well. There's one, healthy mind and the good note. Let's talk about this chapter, right? Because you started off with, there is no witness so terrible, no accuser so powerful as the conscience, which dwells within us. So beautiful. And that was Sophocles? Yeah, 497, 406 BC, philosopher.
It's old.
It's great. It's great. So tell me about this chapter. Why it's so important.
Why mental health?
Why saying no, this is 71.
Sorry.
Why saying no is so fundamentally important to support health and wellness and mental health.
In a nutshell?
In a nutshell, yeah. You didn't hear it in a nutshell.
I think Sophocles says it all.
That's a great,
In this chapter, it's not only to do with that, it's to do with ethics. So I'm a big fan of ethics.
Yeah, I know that, yeah.
And taking an ethical position, understanding your own values and honouring those values. But I also mention here, so this is where psychoanalysis comes into it too, about the superego. And when we're talking about what we were mentioning before about people who can't say no, and one of the consequences is I have no value in the world. I feel like I'm not worthy, not worth anything. And the superego is our conscience, and it's the big finger of judgment that comes down on us.
Right.
And if we can't represent ourselves well and discern the difference between right and wrong, because I think you need to be able to say no to discern what's right and wrong.
Right. But on that point, that's a really good point. Most people think that the ability to discern between right and wrong is fundamentally embedded in having a dogma. And I say it's actually the opposite. It's the opposite of dogma, right? You don't need religion to know that you shouldn't go out and kill someone. You don't need religion to know that you shouldn't be racist. That's your conscience.
That's exactly right.
That's your conscience, you know. And so you're saying that they're fundamentally tied in together.
Completely.
Yeah.
Completely. As I've put in here, the whole thing around, I call it superego because I'm a psychoanalyst, you know, but people would talk about self-criticism, or don't be hard on yourself. And you hear it resonating in the speech of so many women, self-deprecating, really, a lot. And then, you know, you don't want to belabor the point too much. This is more like a journey into helping to guide maybe further reading in other areas. But it's really important to recognize if you have a critical inner voice and to be able to share it.
Yes.
Because keeping it to yourself
it just
maintains it.
Yes, exactly.
So sharing it with people, but you've got to pick people you trust.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's another element of this. Work out people who are your tribe, people you trust, or a professional you get to trust. Because if you seek the help of a professional, don't go to the first one and just think that they will work for you.
No, I've said the same thing. We're going to definitely have an episode on that. We're definitely going to have an episode on how to find the right therapist.
Because it's a mistake.
Absolutely.
Because you've got to find somebody you can work with.
Yes.
And they're not going to be the ones to creating magic and change things. You are. They're your catalyst.
Well, this is what I learned through my analysis and with my analyst, definitely. I just think...
Because you're familiar with all this.
Yeah, but I just think that for people think that... I feel like there's certain words that are hijacked, and mental health is one of those words that's hijacked.
It's like snow
feminism
to Eskimos and sand to...
I know. And there's not a lot of information really in Australia when it comes to mental health. And you and I've had the conversation before around the different modalities of mental health for people. But I do think that having a therapist that you trust goes a long way in helping you grow and evolve and manage life. And it's not linear. Like, you know, with my own analyst, it was never linear. Sometimes I would be in analysis for a while, then I'd take a break and come back. But it is a conscious decision to want to continue to evolve and grow and find the best version of yourself, whatever that may be. And that means that you value yourself.
That's right.
That means that you have respect for yourself.
And that life is random. You have to develop a breadth about you to manage the randomness of what life will throw at you.
Right.
And the disappointment that you may experience in the hands of another. And that always has to be said. Even somebody you trust and love may let you down. Doesn't mean they're a bad person or wrong or anything. Because that actually debunks the myth of perfection in someone. Is that we've all got, what do you call it? Rough bits.
Yeah, we've absolutely.
We've all got, and so we can't idealize people as well. So it's about being realistic, I think, and honest about, you know, life, the planet. Otherwise, you get devastated. You just read the paper and you can be very devastated.
Absolutely, absolutely. But I think that there has to be some kind of taking your own mental wellness into your own hands. Agency. It's the agency.
Yes, that's right.
Do you know what I mean?
You are responsible.
Yeah.
And nobody else, no professional, no other person is responsible for your decline or your demise. You can't. How long can you blame your mum and your dad and
exactly
that lost lover or this other? You can't.
Yeah.
Or that the person you wanted to vote for didn't get in. We can keep on going. Or the weather. There's a good one.
Well, yeah.
The weather.
Yeah.
We have to at some point, take responsibility for dealing with the swings and roundabouts.
What about? I mean, you do this really well in the book. Also, is that you talk about the different types of people that we need to say no to. So there's the psychic vampire, and you define them for me. Define them for us. Do you want some salad? No. Some in there.
I've still got all the beans. Thank you. That's perfect. the psychic vampire. If you look through your life. Oh, okay. Let's go to the top one. So I put this bit in here about Hitler and Winston Churchill, and he did that speech.
Winston Churchill did the speech, or Hitler?
Winston Churchill did a speech to the British people, and he said, "I'll praise it. You know, it's in there." And he said, "When someone like Hitler comes up, you have to really examine how you want to live your life and how you want your country to be, or how you want the world to be, and what you do about that. You could sit back and do nothing, then what? But it's for us, each one of us individually and uniquely, to stand up and say no to that kind of tyranny."
Right.
And there was something really powerful in actually him putting that into words and directing it at something that was tangible, like a Hitler, because frequently we don't. And so I thought, wow, there are examples of this everywhere. So at a very smaller note, I've got examples in the book of the psychic vampire. Everybody knows them. You might have it in the family, or you might work with them.
Yes.
These are people who continually are needy and wanting you to satisfy their needs in one way or another, whether it's emotionally, physically. Drive me home, pick me up. Oh, I'm not well today. Can you do this job? And I'm like, oh, can you go and get me a cup of tea while you're up? All these constantly. Oh, that reminds me of the passive-aggressive person as well.
I can't handle passive.
Because it's linked.
Because it's insidious.
It's insidious.
It's actually worse than aggression, because if you don't pay attention, which I do, it's everywhere.
It's all over the place.
And it's like, say what you really mean instead of masking it in humour. It's often masked in humour.
It completely. The thing about passive aggression too is the epitome of why the good no exists, I think.
Yeah.
Because you need to recognise passive aggression, and I've got it written in here without going into too much detail. It's people who are aggressive but passively. It's who, me? I didn't do it. I didn't mean to leave you off that email list that was for the invitation for this special dinner. Sorry about that. But there's a passive aggression behind it.
Yes.
And it's about recognizing it and working out how you're going to manage it.
Right.
And that's, it's unique as to how you manage it. You could leave the job, actually.
Yes,
because people do leave.
People like that everywhere.
Everywhere. And they can be really entrenched. And say if in your workplace you have two of them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you see? So that's when we've really got... And it really is. It has to be managed. It has to be put into the open that this stuff exists out there. Otherwise, you do feel like, well, the world is gaslighting you.
Well, yeah, and you do, but you constantly, because I'm a sensitive person and because I'm very, I pick up on things very quickly. And there was someone I worked with recently who was incredibly passive aggressive, and I had a conversation with her, and I asked her, and I said, look, I'm a really direct person. So that's my style of communication. Yes. So I like for someone to be direct with me. So if you need something, all you need to say is preface it with a please and post it with a thank you, and I'll do it for you. I'll give you my eyes. That's all you need to do. I don't need it coated in someone else has done it and you basically telling me that I didn't do it or you expected me. Just be direct. That's how I like to be communicated to.
Yes.
You know? Yes. But even telling someone how you like to be treated is difficult for people.
Yes.
Why? Yes. Why is that?
Well,
because you
there's numerous reasons.
Yeah.
Numerous reasons. One is people don't want to offend somebody else. They want to be liked. They don't want to change the atmosphere. They want to keep things superficial. They feel like also they're uncomfortable about making who they are, what they want, known. People find it difficult going from the personal to the work and the work to the personal. Yeah, so they have boundaries in there that separate them, and sometimes boundaries can mean you cut yourself off from experiences because you're still a person if you're at work or at home.
Yeah,
it's the person who's there.
Right.
You're not a machine.
Exactly.
So I think people mistake how to deal with other human beings in relationship. They mistake how the possibilities, because the possibilities
are endless,
are pretty broad.
They're endless
about how you can be, but most people limit themselves or restrict themselves.
I think most people are afraid to speak up, and and
hugely
afraid to speak up, afraid to, because it's intrinsically connected with how you feel about yourself. So it goes back to self-respect.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean? There are a myriad of different reasons why, you shouldn't say that this, you're crossing a boundary, but I always say to my children, especially Cairo, never walk away from a situation where you feel like you've been taken advantage of or you haven't actually said what you need to say. Please walk away from a situation if you're really angry and you feel like you could be offensive. Then you need to walk away, but come back and address it, really clearly.
That's a good point. Emotions. Emotions can lead you to actually making decisions that aren't necessarily in your best interest.
Yes.
So it's about recognizing how you're feeling and then regulating the emotional expression. And then time out, delay, distract, whatever, to then cogitate on it a little bit. And then to be able to re-enter the situation with a good a balanced, tactful, diplomatic approach to it. Because it's a real problem if the other has caused you to feel that you're behaving as less of a person than you really want to be. You let yourself down.
Haven't you heard the person that comes to you and says to you, I get along with everybody. So basically, if you're bringing something up, it's your fault. Passive-aggressive, again. And that was the point.
Right.
That's the point.
Right. You're the one creating trouble. Let it go.
You
overanalyze things.
And that's the thing,
yes,
is that if you don't call out inappropriate behavior to yourself, you're then telling that person you're accepting that behavior.
That's right.
And that's the reason for saying no. And you don't have to say the word no, but that's the reason for highlighting that behavior and letting that person know that it's not acceptable.
Well, here's a good one. Children.
Yeah. Yes.
And the question of making a rod for your own back. I don't know whether it's just a current practice or maybe, I don't know, but there's a lot of people with problems around saying no to the kids.
I don't understand that. Maybe because I kind of mothered similar to my mother in what I loved in her, which was that she was my mother. She wasn't there to be my friend, right? That was very clear. Very clear to me. When I got a little bit older, she was there to start this, confident shit.
Yeah.
But as a child, the boundaries were very clear for me. She was my mother.
Yeah.
And so I did tend to pick up on that and mothered in that way. But then when you listen to your children talk, my children will tell you that they thought I was very strict and that I had too many boundaries, and I said, boundaries keep you safe. They let you know you're loved.
That's right.
They let you know that you're taken care of. And you didn't need me as a friend when you were younger. Now she's my best friend.
Exactly.
But,
But that is that's exactly the point, is that boundaries make a kid feel safe.
Yeah.
And so many kids have got anxiety. They're diagnosed with ADHD. And then the question is, how do you put a boundary in place without getting angry? And I hear people say, right, I'm giving you 3 chances. And at the end of the 3 chances, that's it. You're not getting any screen time.
Yeah.
And then it's the kid knows, because the kid's not silly. They're really good at this.
Yeah.
So they provoke to the 3rd time, and the mother says, well, it's just 3 more times.
Oh, no, you've got to come through with it.
And then blah, blah, blah. And then finally take the screen away for 5 minutes and then give the screen back.
Oh, dear.
Yes. And so what you've got is a kid
you
goes...
created a monster.
And the kid goes...
I can get away with anything. Yeah, of course.
And she feels like even a small no is too hard for her with her child.
Oh, no.
You see?
No.
And thinking, and especially, and okay, that's with let's say, ordinary kid. Say if you've got a kid who's really anxious. So the idea is, if I say no, it'll only make her more anxious.
No, it's actually the opposite.
Mistake.
It's the opposite.
Big mistake.
Yeah, it's the opposite. Yeah.
So these kinds of errors in thinking get perpetuated with couples, parents, who just don't know what to do when their kid is having a nightmare, a tantrum, whatever circumstance it is.
A tantrum. I remember Cara had one tantrum. I'll never forget this. She literally threw herself on the floor.
Bliss.
And we were out in public, and I left her there, and she says, "Mummy, Mummy," and I knew she was behind me, and I knew she was going to come chasing me. And I said, "If you want to stay on the floor, you can clean the floor and stay there. I'm going." And she never did it again, ever.
You see,
ever.
And they learn fast.
Yeah,
those kinds of things.
Yeah,
really, really quickly. You know, because they want your love, but they also test it a bit.
Oh, definitely.
That's their job to test it.
Yeah, definitely.
But that's another one about saying.
But do you think that's cultural, though? Do you think that's cultural? I mean, I think we live in a world where we're saturating children with too much sport, too much this, too many activities. Here's your iPad, here's your iPhone, and it's like, where's the connection with you?
Family life is centered around the children. I don't think that's good for kids.
No, because it teaches it, because I think then they grow up to think the whole world centers around them.
It has to be a family affair. Also, here's another one, chores. I think they need to be, even from a young age, you can do something.
Absolutely.
I witnessed the 9-year-old.
Make your bed, open your window, clean your room. Absolutely.
The other one was, and so mother can carry all the luggage. So the mother has to carry all the luggage. I was like, what? Pick up after these kinds of things. And it's like, oh my goodness.
But I think the problem with parents and boundaries is that oftentimes you get parents that, because they don't value themselves, they want to be seen as the cool parent. The friend.
Yes.
You can't be a friend to your child, especially when they're young. When they're older, that's different. That's an adult relationship.
It's a big job being a parent. It's the biggest job on the planet.
I know.
And
that doesn't mean you don't make mistakes. I've made a billion mistakes. But I think that it's important as they're growing up that they know that you're firm, but you're fair, that you're loved, and they can come to you. And then there's rules, and I think that's very important.
Your job is to breed civilized human beings so that they can, 6 degrees of separation. They go out, and if civilization changes in that way, and that's because of parenting, breeding civilized kids.
When we first moved to Sydney, we lived next door to this lovely, lovely woman, and she never had her own children, but she gave me the greatest bit of advice when I first had Jonah. She said, the mark of a great mother or parents is that your children are independent. And it's so true. Because I suffered tremendously and I had all these issues with, separating from my mother after she died, that was so important to me that they felt they could function in the world on their own. And that, to me, is a lot.
No, that's important, that is where the goal is.
Yeah, but I think...
And confidently. But civilized humans, to know the learn the difference between right and wrong, and for them to develop their own values in that way is important. And it can only come from no and yes, no, yes. Because I'm not bagging yes.
No,
because I think life's out there and live it. But with a society that's a little bit out of control regarding I hate to say this, but first world problems.
But it is.
But it is. And, we need to say no to some of those things. I was reading somewhere where, it was, I think it was the New York Times a couple of years ago, put out a list of 100 things that will make your life better. And it was about, saying no more often and turning things off and not sitting quietly, not needing so much stimulation was,
really important.
A significant number of this 100 things. So,
I think on some level people are realising and recognising that, and I've said this before and I've put it up on LinkedIn, we cannot as humanity continue to do the same thing and expect a different result.
That's right.
The reason we keep having wars is because we haven't learned anything.
Not from history. History will repeat itself.
Until you learn, until you do something different. Yeah. And, the use of all this technology and what it does for families is that it actually causes more separation for them. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yep. And we become self-indulgent somehow. And so busy with work and different things. We become busier on one hand and slaves to technology, let's say, or something else, without seeing that there are perhaps simpler things that we could be doing.
Yeah. And more enjoyable things.
Yeah, much more enjoyable.
like reading going for a walk, you
That's
know,
right. Exactly.
sitting in the ocean, doing something that, you know, giving back in some way.
Yes.
I don't know if it's my age or my stage of life or whatever it is, but I just feel like I want to make sure that I've done something big for the world before I leave it, that I've given back in some way, you know, and it's important for me that I do that in a very conscious way. That's a really important thing for me. And the reason that I feel that way is because I can say no to people, and I have developed that. And I came from being a people pleaser, so it took a long, long time. And the first time that you say no, I did put this up on my TikTok, it's a very uncomfortable thing. And you do start to question yourself, is this person going to like me? Do they want to be around me? Will I still maintain this relationship? But the more that you do it, it's like a muscle. The more you strengthen yourself, the better you become, the more adept you become. And it becomes a part of your fabric. So you no longer have to question whether you should do it. Completely. You just do it when it comes up.
That's right.
Know? So
there's nothing worse than feeling like a bad person because you said no to somebody else's intrusive behavior.
Yes.
You see you got to know that human beings, we're strange.
Yeah.
We think, and we, you know,
the nice girl
syndrome.
Things. The nice girl syndrome. What interferes with the nice girl? I've actually said this to someone recently who was telling me that she just loves being nice, and I said nobody is nice all the time. And if you're saying that, I'm sorry, but you're deluding yourself. If that's what you believe about, because what that tells me is that you're festering and harboring grudges, and you're avoiding
something, because no matter what, nothing is nice all the time. And it is a syndrome because it's a tyranny of niceness. I wrote a paper years and years ago regarding nurses being with the tyranny of niceness. And they are told they have to be nice all the time. Although there's a lot of nurses who aren't nice these days. But then it was a tyranny to be nice. And certain other professions. Being an air hostess, tyranny of niceness. Other things as well. That's just professions, but it is a tyranny, and we have to be a nice person, smile for other people. Don't make them feel uncomfortable, even though they are a horrible bore or they're aggressive and nasty.
They're intrusive on you. They're encroaching on you. So I have a friend who is like this, and we've had numerous conversations around it. And, you know, my thing is, and she's a really beautiful human being, but I struggled, and I said to her, it's okay to say no.
Yes. It's
okay. And you can't possibly be nice all the time because you're a human being and you have a myriad of emotions in any given moment, you know?
Yeah.
But some people have the disease to please.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
At the expense of themselves.
And their authenticity.
It is. Yeah.
You don't get to know the real person.
Yes, I totally agree with you.
When they're like that.
Yeah.
You can tell if somebody's doing that in front of you, it's like, it's a conversation killer.
Yeah. And absolutely.
There's nowhere to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because what is, and really.
It's surface. It's all surface.
What does it mean to be real? That's another part of it. You know, with other people, you have to be able to trust yourself first. Yeah. And that it's okay to let go some personal secrets that aren't too personal, you know.
Yeah, because that's how you cultivate. Go. Exactly, yeah.
And intimacy.
Yeah.
So intimacy comes from being more you.
Definitely.
And that's a yes.
Yes, that's definitely a yes.
That you have to say no to breaches in intimacy.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because we all definitely know someone who has what you call the tyranny of niceness.
And toxic positivity.
I know. Another. It's
true. It's everywhere.
It's like, do you actually even know what that means? It's like, you know, it's. I feel American culture is the reason for that, because everything seems to kind of stem around that kind of world of culture and politics and the arts, and everything is kind of merging. But American culture specifically has now gone from the Harvey Weinstein and the abusers of the world and the people that take advantage and the egotistical to this now, the opposite, what you just said, the niceness, right? But where's the reality? Where's the real? Where are the real people?
Exactly. It's one of the things that I've written it here, and I think it's really. I noticed. Oh God, this is terrible. But at funerals, when somebody's died, you'll hear people say, "Oh, don't worry, you'll get over it," or "They're old. They'd lived a full life," or another one is people are depressed. Happiness is a choice.
Oh no, the strength one is the one that kills me. You're so strong.
You're so strong, you get over it.
I find that incredibly dismissive. I found it incredibly rude. I find it incredibly insulting.
It is.
I don't need to be reminded of my strength. I don't need that. In times of bereavement, all you need is support.
Just be there.
Yeah.
And people don't know how to be there. They feel uncomfortable and want to fix it by saying, "Shut up. I don't want to hear you talk about it because, you'll get over it. We all get over it." Or another one is, "Yeah, but my suffering was worse than yours."
Oh, yeah, heard that
because
before.
blah, blah, blah. In this, so it's clumsy. It's really clumsy, but it's an avoidance to be with someone who's suffering.
Because for whatever reason they can't cope with it. Yes, you do see that at funerals a lot. Yeah. It is.
Or with any loss, you see this kind of thing. Oh, another one. And then even worse than that, it's like, come on, get over it.
Oh dear.
Because somebody's partner had died, their husband had died, and it was a year or two later, and it was okay getting on in life, but was still hurting and talking about it and things like this. And the person said, "Julie, you haven't gotten over it by now." And it's like, and what they said was like, "I'm never going to get over it.
Dear.
I love this person who is close to me in my life,
and
I'm never going to get over them. Why would I want to?
Of course.
I can live with other people around me, but I'm not going to stop talking about them.
Yeah.
Because they lived and they were part of my life." So there's an expectation to shut up about something.
Yes, because people can't deal with grief. No, they don't. Because grief is the one thing that lets people know that you're going to die at some stage. It is
and you are.
confronting because you're confronting your own mortality in that.
That's right. So we're dealing with the fragility of the other. And that's why we need to say no. So that not only do we construct our own boundaries and, establish our own, we discern how we want to live our own life, gives them a message as well. It teaches the other that it's okay to sit with uncomfortable feelings, that it's okay for the other person to say no, and that you can shut up if you're going to say something, try it.
Absolutely. 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 I know. It's one of those things that I think as this term mental health is hijacked, people are starting, to go, oh, okay, so it's okay to say no. I'm allowed to say no. I'm allowed to have time for myself. I'm allowed to. But yeah, because that's part of your growth. And that's important for you. It's important for your health. It's important for your self-respect. It's important for you to really know that, understand that the people around you, if they want to be around you, because people will drop off when you start saying no.
Yes. Well, because you've had a culture around me of yes sayers.
Yeah.
And they'll feel uncomfortable with it, and some of them will join in.
Yeah.
But they get used to it. The other thing is you can say no and then just still be yourself, your happy self.
Yes. Definitely.
So people get the sense of, oh, ouch, that hurts. She said no. And then, oh, but she's still herself. She hasn't borne a grudge against me.
Definitely.
We're so sensitive, aren't we?
We are, but I think it builds your confidence as well when you're able to say no to someone for something that you hadn't in the past. And that's something I've said to both the kids. It's important to be able to do that. I think Cairo said to me once that she was dating a guy and he took her kindness and her gentleness for stupidity almost. And when he asked her to do something and she said no, he didn't think she had it in her, right? But she does. She's very strong. She's very assertive. She's very clever. And, she said to me, Mum, oftentimes, because I am so introverted, people think that, I'm not as intelligent. And I said, that is so ridiculous. That is so ridiculous. She said, that is how people think, that because you're so introverted and you don't say very much. She's an extreme introvert, and maybe even not the word extreme, but she's like when you have like a scale, like I'm an introverted extrovert. She's a real introvert. Happy being in her own space, doesn't need to be out amongst people, doesn't need the energy of others to energize her, whereas I need that external energy. But she said that it's a good feeling to be able to say to someone, you know.
It is.
Yeah. And she said to this person that don't speak to me in that way, don't speak to me inappropriately. And she said he was stunned that I said that to him. And I said, yeah, because he doesn't know you. He doesn't expect that from you.
No. And he's getting to learn where your boundaries are.
Yes.
And if the other person can manage it, you'll know, good.
Let's have a break.
Let's have a break.
We'll be back in just a moment. Please come back. I have this wonderful guest, Belinda Mackie, and the topic is the good no, and we've got so much more for you. We'll be back in a moment.